The 3:30 p.m. meeting of the Bakersfield City Council is now in session.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to call to order the 3:30 regular City Council meeting of February 26, 2025. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Go,
Here.
Vice Mayor Core, Councilmember Arias,
Here.
Councilmember Gonzalez,
I'm here.
Councilmember Weir, Councilmember Smith,
I am here.
Councilmember Coman, Councilmember Bashir Tosh.
Here.
Thank you. For the record, we have no members of the public in the audience and no media, so we're going to dispense with the public statements right now. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Closed session item 3A, conference with labor negotiator.
Right. We are adjourned to closed session. Reconvening at 4:32. City Manager Clegg.
Closed session action, Mayor?
Oh, closed session action.
Thank you. There was one item in closed session tonight, and there is no reportable action for the record. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager Clegg.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We have a report item this afternoon that's related to priority setting for our City Council initiatives and City Council referrals. And I'm going to just point to a couple of materials that Council has available to them. The first is, of course, this a slide deck presentation that will serve as a list of these priorities that are categorized into sort of bunches. But then the long and short of it, I'm gonna get right to the punchline at the beginning, is the shorter document that is this landscape document that's only 4 pages long. That is what I'm recommending to Council as the referrals that we as staff will be focusing on between now and the end of the fiscal year. But I'll walk through this presentation to provide a little more detail and rationale as to why those are the priority referrals that we're going to be working on through the rest of the year. Just to put it all into context, of course, we work around the priorities of the City Council goals. That is our baseline and our framework, but those are broad statements, and so of course we have initiatives that are more detailed underneath. And within our council strategic plan, as I would refer to sort of the overall package of different documents, those City Council goals, we have 5. We've created a 5-year plan that has 26 overarching objectives. And within those 26 objectives, there are 88 priority initiatives that we've identified as a council. Over the last 2 years, we've been working on those priority initiatives. We're going to have a workshop later this spring that reviews our progress on those initiatives, and many of those we've actually completed and we're finished and done, and others we're still working on because they're multi-year challenges. But even within those 88 initiatives, to bring focus, we have 10, the top 10 high priority initiatives that Council identified as of highest priority. And so that's, again, this is just to give a framework of how we think through where we spend our time and effort. Those top 10 are these: the ease of development process, homelessness, housing, police response times, was a very high priority of the council, as a specific element of public safety, traffic safety, and then annexation, capital projects, charter review, economic development, and urban reinvestment were your top 10 priorities. So as I looked at the referrals that are out there, I was, of course, keeping a keen eye of those referrals that are connected to these highest priorities. Just to give a little bit of context about referrals overall, and 2020, don't assume that there were only 16 referrals. This is sort of, as we started a new tracking system, that's how many we captured there. But over the years, we're seeing a fair, busy clip of how many actions our council asks us to take. I would acknowledge that a handful of referrals come through as we've got maybe a member of the public who comes to public comment, and a council member will ask us to follow up with them. Those are the nice, easy ones. We take care of those quick. But most referrals are to really review a policy aspect or to consider a large project. And so referrals typically take a fair amount of time to complete. And so it's a pretty big body of work to have 100 referrals that we work through in any given year. 2023, good news is there are very few 2023 referrals that are still open. We've got a handful that are open. Pending means that we actually haven't worked it, and in process means we're working it. Sometimes there's a long-term goal that might be, say, connected to the general plan update, and that's still pending. And others, sometimes maybe they aren't the highest priority, and so they're still out there pending. If you look at 2021, 2022, they're similar. We actually have 1 or 2 in 21. I just looked at it, and 1 or 2 in 22. But overall, our closure rate on prior year referrals was quite good. But 2024, we're still early in 2025, early enough that we have not quite half closed, but many that we're still working on. That's really the message there, is that we're still working a lot of issues from 2024. It's interesting, I've started tracking our referrals, and are they based on those top 10 priorities? And you can see there's a pretty big number of referrals that do come through that aren't necessarily connected to the items that council has identified as highest priorities. Again, that doesn't mean they're not worthy of work, but we take that into account in deciding which ones we work on first. So I'm going to be recommending, what I said is, the short list, this 4-page list, those are 29 referrals that we're going to work on over the next quarter through the end of the fiscal year. Even 29, I would argue, is a kind of a big number, but some of those are packaged up. So we have 4 referrals that are related to, or actually it's 5 referrals that are related to tree canopy, and 4 referrals that were related to the traffic safety. And so because we're able to work those in parallel, as you'll see in some of the upcoming slides, I think we have the capacity to keep working on these 29 issues. And again, as I noted, we connected those referrals that are of highest priority to keep working on are those that are connected to our priority initiatives. And there are a handful that I'll highlight that work was already in progress, whether that was at a council committee or staff was already working on those topics, and it makes sense to finish them out. I don't assume you're going to be able to read this. This is just to communicate to you on this slide. This is your council priority initiative tracking sheet. Just so you know, we have a very detailed log of these initiatives and the status updates. And this is the referral tracking spreadsheet that the help team, Michelle and Pilar, keep updated for us. Just so you know, we're tracking very close detail, but this would make all of our heads swim to spend half an hour looking at that level of detail. So I'm just showing you that we have it, but I'm going to zoom back out to just focus on the big picture of these referrals. So the number one priority of the council is the ease of the development process. And we have 2 referrals that are out there still. And you'll note, you might wonder about some of this formatting. I chose to just take the content right out of those tracking spreadsheets, and that's why it's in the different boxes, colors, and font. But it's to reflect, again, those tracking sheets we have. So we have 2 referrals that are related to the ease of the development process. And actually, there's a lot of work going into the ease of the development process, even beyond those 2 referrals. But just highlighting that the reason we're going to work on those referrals is because we're working on the ease of development as one of our highest priority areas. This item actually didn't have any referrals, but I wanted to reflect that it is a priority initiative of the council that we're working because there's a lot of momentum with the developer and a study that the council approved. So we're working on the mega site, and we're going to have a presentation on the mega site in sometime this spring for council. Parking enterprise, we did complete the feasibility study, and so we've got a referral out on that one. And so we're going to keep working the parking enterprise because we've got a little bit of momentum behind that. And then the Mills Act is actually a referral all the way from 2021 that is also a priority initiative of the council that we're going to keep working through this next quarter. We did have this referral that was not connected to a priority initiative, but just acknowledging it here for the council that there's, again, enough energy here, and this has been discussed, that we're going to continue to look at what are the options and viability for Crystal Palace. And I probably should have said at the outset, I've batched these into each of the council goals, and so you'll see at the top of each slide, these have been the economic development related priorities and referrals that we're going to work on. I have 2 slides for each of the 5 goal sections, just to show, because you might ask yourself, well, why didn't that referral I made, it's not on the list, city manager, why isn't it on the list? Well, there could be 3 different reasons. 1, we've already finished it. 2, that it's still coming. Or 3, because we don't quite have the capacity, and so it's it's still going to be pending into the future once we can get to it. So for reflection, we've had referrals on all of these topics here that we've made a lot of progress on the entrepreneurship grants. We're going to still continue that work, but we're in good motion there, and we don't need to change course. We did create the Downtown Development Fund, and we've been funding it. The Old Town Kern Visioning is well underway. We did help the county and other partners acquire some grant funding to get at the direct air capture. We had some referrals around EOA and large facade grants that we've been able to address. And then the youth jobs did include some trade apprenticeships, which knocked something out from some referrals in the last year. What is still coming that is not going to be the highest priority in the next quarter is, we've talked about our Energy Innovation Center, the Advanced Manufacturing Park. We've just got other work we need to finish up before we can get to these in the new fiscal year. We've also got some of our redevelopment agency replacement tools that we're going to do some early legwork with staff, but I don't expect us to bring those forward to council in the next 3 months, but I do in the next year. We're working on Old Town Kern, but it's going to be a few more months until we come back to the downtown and Chester redevelopment plans. The downtown element there's a referral around that, but it's tied into the general plan updates. So it's going to take some time. And then we had priority initiatives around an economic development ordinance, some mixed-use projects, and a trade school that, again, we're just going to have to get to those after we knock out some of these other items. Switching gears into safety and resilience, and I did some quick numbers. We had the most referrals related to safety and resilience. That's public safety and homelessness and multimodal, and so go figure. We had a lot of activity in these areas. Number 1 priority is working on the jail bed challenge, and we have a referral and a priority initiative related to that topic. We didn't have follow-up referrals, but it is worth council knowing that our technology and fire and police staff are working on the radio system. We're heavy into that work. It's worth noting that the DOJ stipulated judgment does take a lot of staff time, and so I put that there just to communicate to council that we can't assume that that's not a part of the big body of work that staff has to deliver on. On the fire side, there's a specific initiative around reducing the number of arsons. And so I just reflecting also that the recent referral by Councilmember or Vice Mayor Core about Fire Master Plan that is underway, and we're going to be working that over the next few months. These are a couple of referrals that didn't have priority initiatives, but we are working them. Union Avenue has actually been a challenging spot for law enforcement, and so we've taken some initiative to work that area specifically. And then the police department was already working on a policy related to these automatic license plate reading cameras because it is important to have some protocols around that. And so we're going to, continue to just complete that because PD was already working on it. Switching gears into multimodal, again, we actually have, if you look at the priority initiatives, there are a few sub-bullets underneath there, but there wasn't space on the slide to include all those sub-bullets, but we know there's a lot of work to be done with several different multimodal projects and safety projects, and just reflecting that there are also several referrals related to those. It's a priority, top 5 priority of the council, and we're going to keep working that issue in this next quarter, and I'm sure beyond. But the main point for this one is we will be putting a good amount of work into that topic area in this coming quarter. Switching gears a little bit more into the homelessness space, we had some referrals to look at the eviction protection program. We're going to come back. I'm actually going to not include it at mid-year next week. We're going to go over mid-year. But in April, we'll have our 6-month pilot update workshop presentation to the council. And then we've been working really hard on Proposition 1 and trying to get the county and other partners to submit applications. The city participated in one of those applications, and you've got an item on your agenda tonight that's related to that. And so we know one of the biggest impacts we can have on the shelter populations and sort of unsheltered populations is getting folks into treatment. So we need more of these behavioral health residential options. And so we're working the referral specifically from Councilmember Gonzalez, but also other projects to try and get more of those beds. Some of that will be sort of city pushed, but we're also trying to get many of our partners to really step in there because it's not historically been our area of work, and I wouldn't recommend the city try to do all this work on our own. It's really partners need to do that work, but we're trying to step up and help make that happen quicker. A couple of referrals related to just really the chronic homeless population in care court that didn't have a direct council priority initiative, but these are again at the heart of trying to address homelessness and encampments, and so we're working each of these 3 referrals related to the care court, homeward bound, and just sort of our full service suite that's available to folks who are experiencing homelessness in our community. Housing is also a piece of this element, and so you will see some slides that have some yellow highlights that I'm just trying to point to the specific aspects of those council initiatives that are going to be a priority in this coming quarter. And so we're going to be working really closely on affordable housing. We've hired a new assistant to the city manager whose priority assignments are going to be around housing. We had one referral that was related to the lien forgiveness program that connects to these priority initiatives that are also we're going to be working hard in the coming quarter. This is a separate initiative that I would say is closely related to the prior one, that our ADU incentive program needs to get launched, and we've been ready to launch for a long time, and that's going to be a priority in the next quarter to get that out the door. Some other recent accomplishments, we had some specific initiatives and referrals related to the number of impact teams and police teams. And so in this last year, we went up to our 4th impact team, and we have 4 co-response teams that are addressing encampments. The mental health clinician staffing and the communication center has been a huge benefit. The utilization of private security has actually paid pretty big dividends. The gun violence reduction strategy has been very successful, and the security grant program, to both cycles, were fully subscribed and have had very good feedback from businesses who have been recipients of those grants. Also, I broke these up into some subcategories because the list was long for public safety. We had the Complete Streets Ordinance and Resolution, and we've had numerous multimodal demonstration projects built in this last year. And as it relates to homelessness, we did create our community vitality team. They're doing very good work. We did the expansion of the shelter. Community land trust has been formed, and we've implemented several pieces of a neighborhood stabilization program. But what's still coming is we have had some referrals on domestic violence strategy. We're actually keenly interested in those and propelling off of our gun violence reduction strategies, but I think it's going to take us another quarter to knock out. For me, really, that's about leaving myself and PD capacity to address the jail bed issue, and then in the new year really focus on domestic violence. And then we've talked about some of our challenging alleyways. We want to get at that, but again, it just hasn't quite raised to the highest level, and so we're going to probably have to get to that in the new year. And then we've talked about a master EIR for mixed use projects that's going to be lumped into the general plan update, which will address that instead of trying to take it as a one-off. Shifting gears into reliable infrastructure, just want to point out that we have had a council priority to get as many projects shovel ready as possible. That's going to continue to be a really big focus for us in this coming quarter. Also, the community choice aggregator is something that we're actively working on. It was listed as an initial feasibility study. We've done one feasibility study, but we're actually just working beyond that initial feasibility study to be able to come back to council with what we would argue is, the business case for why it works. We're going to be working that in the next quarter. We've had several solar concepts, and we've actually done a fair amount of work in the basic implementation of what I would kind of call basic solar through the first phase of solar panels in many of our city facilities and parking lots. But we just completed an RFP to hire folks on board to really look at some more creative solutions around solar that would also be much bigger, much more acreage of solar that would really reduce city costs for utilities and potentially create some economic development opportunities. And so we're going to be working that alongside with the Community Choice Aggregator in the next quarter. In reliable infrastructure, that's an area where we've completed a lot of projects. We've got a lot of projects to still do, but Manor Street's done, Centennial Quarter open. We've got 7th Movement underway, 8th Movement under design. 8th Movement will be an important construction piece to get going in this probably in the next year, but it's high on our list. Again, we've done a lot of the shovel readiness. There's more to be done in those areas. Complete streets projects for multiple areas, Niles Monterey, MLK Boulevard, 18th, 19th, H Street, Chester Street, and we've been able to get big grants for those. We're not done with those projects, so they're not listed here, but we did a lot of the design for those projects. There's actually a specific referral about repaving. Then we have changed how we're doing paving, and we're able to pave much faster and much more efficiently, and we're making progress on our pavement condition index because of that. We did finish our facility condition assessment, and the turf replacement program is working. We're going to continue it, but kind of the initial work of getting that going and figuring out how to do that is kind of under the belt now, and we're just going to continue to have several projects every year where we go out and get those maintenance savings and water savings by replacing the turf with other landscaping. What items that were listed as either priority initiatives or referrals that are still kind of out there is, of course, Hageman Flyover. That's pending and some strategy and funding. We have a solid waste facilities master plan that we still got to come back to council with. Some broadband installation and on our fueling and charging stations are some fairly big ticket items that we need to get at, but it's not going to be in the next quarter. 2 more goals to go. I think we'll get us done here with a little break before our next meeting. Community character and quality of life. I've highlighted here, we actually have completed our municipal services review, residential zoning ordinance update, and we've taken a different approach on the climate action plan, but what's still ahead of us is habitat conservation plan, finish the housing element. We're very close, we believe, and then keep working on the general plan update through next year. Clean City Initiative. We've actually accomplished everything on there that's not in yellow, and so we're working on the illegal dumping. We're going to shift gears to focus a little more on the illegal dumping in this next quarter because we made progress in those other areas, and we have 2 different referrals that we're going to work that are related to illegal dumping. The island annexation, we've made a lot of progress. We've actually adopted the 4 small islands, and the 4 big islands are in process. Council's approved those, and LAFCO's approved, I think, 2 of those, and 2 are going to be soon. And so really where we're turning our attention now is a bigger 5-year strategy of where we're going to go after the big annexation chunks now that we've taken care of those island areas. MLK Park is going to continue to be a focus for recreation and parks. And I just reflected here, even though it's not totally related, it's the closest fit. We have that referral from Councilmember Freeman to look at the undeveloped parks that are still remaining. And you'll see one action at mid-year to start to chip away at that. These are just 2 referrals that weren't connected to priority items, but were already in the works. One was the sign ordinance that's gone to committee a couple of times, and we're close to wrapping that up. We just want to finish that out. And then the tobacco retail license, we've had progress there, but there's still some interest in looking at additional aspects. But it's been in process, and so we'll carry that one through in this next quarter. These are the tree referrals that I noted, and these are fairly recent, so I'm not going to read through each one of these, but just noting that based on council interest, despite that there wasn't, maybe an existing priority initiative back from, a couple years ago's plan, clearly a lot of council interest on this topic, and so we have been and will work these tree-related referrals in this next quarter as well. I noted the first one of these already. Our Parks Master Plan is done. We've completed many park projects in underserved communities. We had several referrals and initiatives around that. We did receive the TCC and Community Change grants. If you look back at our original plan, we hadn't gotten there yet, and we've now got those done. And we have made improvements to our community event and special events permit process. I would point to that is on this list as well, because we did kind of an initial phase, but we know there's probably more to be done around special event permits, but we're going to give some of these changes a little time to settle in and come back to that probably next year. We've had on the list some of these gateway and beautification projects for some time. Just looking at the body of work we're trying to push through, we're not going to get to those in this next quarter. I think we'll come back to those in this coming year. Water management plan is something that Water's working on, but I don't see that coming back to this council until next fiscal year. There was a specific initiative on water conservation and enforcement. Again, we're kind of prioritizing some other items, and that'll come back to us later. And then the motel registry, there were actually 4 different referrals on motels and sort of motel accountability. But we've taken some of that to committee. We've sort of, I think, have some interim measures come out of committee, but any bigger further actions probably going to come up in housing element general plan. And so we're going to come back to that one, we think, in the next year. And our final goal around innovative and efficient government, we can't leave this one out. And I just put a highlight here that we have created this performance audit program with our contract help. We've done several projects over the last 2.5 years, but we've got a whole slate of projects for this coming year that's on tap. It's going to be around capital projects, grants management, some of our procurement policies. And so we're going to, I just wanted council to know we're going to keep working that program because it pays big dividends in the long run. Also, one of our initiatives is around vacancies, and we just keep pushing hard. We've got, still 170 to 180 vacancies, typically at any given point. That's about a 10% vacancy rate, so those numbers sound big, but don't forget we're a large organization. We'd like to be at a 5%. 5% is a fairly typical turnover rate, vacancy rate, but 10% is higher than we want to be. We're going to keep pushing at that. We are also, we've created our an internal process for grant monitoring, and we've been very successful at grants. The next step in that process is to actually have a piece of software that helps us to manage and track all of that. And so that's going to be something we'll get done in this next quarter. Just reflecting on some of the items that are again listed as either referrals or initiatives, our reserves have been in very good shape. We actually have created the fire service fee to try and collect some new revenues. The ERP for finance is in really the cleanup of implementation. We did start our advanced metering infrastructure pilot with some grant funds. Class and comp has been a big lift. We've established key performance indicators. And this last bullet is highly summarized. There's many aspects where we've hired our federal lobbyist, and we've been very active in legislation and successful in grants that we really have made progress in increasing our presence in Sacramento and Washington. What's still coming is there was actually an item on council's list about the short-term rental revenue, and that's been a topic of some conversation at committee, and so it's been pushed off to the future. We still have another piece of ERP. A big piece is the HR piece. Charter review, we actually completed the initial piece, but then in this coming year, we'll get at the specific piece that council directed staff to follow up on. We have some dashboards that we need to build out around the KPIs and goals. Even though we've established the KPIs, we need to find a way to make them more visual. And then lastly, we had several initiatives related to some of our just efficiencies and digital transformation, and there's still lots more coming there, but we're just picking the right projects because we've got other bigger priorities right now, and some more of that work's going to come down the road. So I know I walked through that pretty quick. I think the big question again for council is what's on the list, what's not on the list. I would suggest to council that I try to be very thoughtful in which referrals we're going to focus on based on what I'm hearing is the highest priorities of council, both listed as your priority initiatives as well as the feedback from the council in meetings, and identified what we think is the capacity in each of the work areas, and that we think this is what we can tackle in the next 3 to 4 months. And some of those other items we'll come back to in the next coming year. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you for all of your efforts and staff's efforts. 46% of the referrals fall outside the top 10 priorities. And the top 10 priorities are very broad in themselves.
Indeed.
So how are those 46% of the referrals impacting staff's ability and capacity? I know you're trying to juggle, but that seems like a lot that fall out of the top 10 priorities, if indeed those are priorities, and that's what the council stated as the top 10 priorities.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And as I noted at the beginning, typically there's a handful of referrals that are pretty quick, to take care of, but most referrals take a fair amount of time. And so it does create some strain on staff. And I think sometimes, you might see even some of those priority initiatives go a little slower than we want because we're stretching out to try and catch, all of the referrals. And so that's why we wanted to create this process where once a quarter we really come back to council and say, hey, we're going to focus in, get progress and things done on this smaller list of items so that we can knock out the biggest ones first and then come back and focus on some of those other items because they do sometimes distract from the stuff that's the big stuff.
Thanks. Councilmember Arias.
Mayor, I think you made my point. It's just that I think it's so important that not only at the staff level and at Christian's level, but also as a council, that we do what we can to ensure that we, as we continue to make referrals, to make requests of staff, that we do our absolute best to make sure that what we are requesting of staff is, within not only what we're responsible for as a city, but also falls within our initiatives and priorities that we've established as a council. So Christian, I just want to say kudos to you for putting this together. This was actually one of the recommendations that the consultant that we had worked with last summer was that we have these regular updates on all of the different referrals. And Christian, you're right. There are many requests that we get from constituents, and I'm glad that this really excludes some of those requests and really focuses in on the non-constituent referrals that are made. A question for you. We do have 2 new council members on the dais. What is the plan in the works to redo our city council priorities to give them an opportunity?
Yeah, thank you.
Provide input.
Thank you, Councilmember Arias, Mayor and Council. We the last concerted prioritization process was actually 2 years ago at this time, and so it is time for a refresh. We've got a facilitator selected. We've got a workshop date set aside for April the 10th, and we'll spend about a half a day really digging in, and that'll be an opportunity for the new council members to talk about things that are important to you, what you're hearing from your constituents, reflect and review some of the progress that we've made on other initiatives. And I expect and hope a little bit of a reshuffling. We may say, we still want to work on some of those things, but these things have emerged as bigger priorities now. So April 10th, we'll have that workshop with council to reset.
Fantastic. I just have one other question for you. Habitat Conservation Plan. What is the plan and timeline for that to come back to the council?
You will note that it was on the list for this next quarter. We do have what we believe is a revised approach that we think that the state CDFW department will support. And we've got a consultant putting that on paper so that we can come back to council with a recommendation for how to bring that forward. We need to do some stakeholder outreach, we think, still, because that's a topic that impacts some of our stakeholders pretty significantly. But the last time we brought it forward, we didn't really have a solution, I think, that was tenable across the board for folks. And so we've had to rethink, but we do have a revised approach, and we're putting some of the details to it so we can bring it forward to council and stakeholders for consideration and before the end of the fiscal year.
Fantastic, thank you. My only other comment is that I really appreciate you keeping Councilmember Freeman's referrals in this document, although he's not on the dais. I think these two particular referrals are around multimodal traffic calming, and the other around the 11 unconstructed parks throughout the city of Bakersfield are really important, even though he's not on the dais, that we continue forward well on that work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Arias. We need a motion to receive and file. Councilmember Bashirtosh.
I'll make a motion.
Motion. You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved with council members Kaur and Weir absent.
Thank you. And with that, we stand adjourned at 5:07. We'll start again at 5:15 with our next meeting. And
Welcome to the Bakersfield City Council meeting. This television broadcast is brought to you by the local cable companies, the County of Kern, and the City of Bakersfield. You can watch the rebroadcast. Welcome to the Bakersfield City Council meeting. This television broadcast is brought to you by the local cable companies, the County of Kern, and the City of Bakersfield. You can watch the rebroadcast of this meeting Saturday at 7 p.m., Sunday at 10 a.m., and the following Wednesday at 7 p.m. You can download the agenda for this meeting at www.bakersfieldcity.us. Presiding over this evening's meeting, the Honorable Mayor Karen K. Go.
good evening. It's my pleasure to call to order the 5:15 regular City Council meeting of February 26, 2025. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Go,
Here.
Vice Mayor Kaur, Councilmember Arias,
Here.
Councilmember Gonzalez,
Here.
Councilmember Weir, Councilmember Smith, Councilmember Coman,
Here.
Councilmember Bashirtosh.
Here.
Thank you, and welcome to all of you. A special welcome to our students from Professor Holmes' class at Bakersfield College. It's always good to have you here. We have the pleasure tonight of having Pastor Joe Gomez of Victory Outreach Bakersfield to offer our invocation. Pastor, thank you so much for your work in the community. I've seen Victory Outreach at many food giveaways, backpack giveaways, toy drives, and other types of outreaches. Following the invocation, our 2025 Bakersfield pageant title holders will lead us in the pledge. They recently were crowned. It's always such a joy to see this group because it's not a beauty pageant, although they are beautiful. They are chosen on their ability to serve our community. I see them multiple times a week in service. For more than 30 years, the Bakersfield pageant has actively engaged with local nonprofits, dedicating time, dedicating resources, and supporting initiatives. Thank you so much for your volunteerism, your service, and making a positive impact. I know Saturday, Sunday, night after night, you're out there, so thank you very much. And tonight we have with us Mrs. Bakersfield, Erica Kimmel. You can go ahead and stand up, who actively contributes to the community through her church and local nonprofits. She's been a teacher for 9 years and will graduate with her master's in curriculum and instruction this summer. Thank you. And then Miss Bakersfield, Isabella Edwards, studied human development at UC Davis. She's a stay-at-home mom who is passionate about child development and aspires to work at a child care facility. And then we have Miss Bakersfield, Georgia Meadow, a senior at Liberty High School and a sophomore at Bakersfield College. She aspires to become a family attorney and is currently working as a fitness instructor and volleyball coach. And then lastly, we have Miss Teen Bakersfield, Molly McKinley, a junior at North High and hopes to major in neuroscience in college. She's very passionate about education and healthcare and aspires to become a pediatric neurologist. And with them also is Kimberly Price, who is more or less their mother and is with them every single day, every night and every weekend. Pastor, would you all please now stand and we will have our invocation and pledge.
Thank you so very much, Mayor. I appreciate you guys, and thank you for having us here, Mayor and the fellow councilmen and women. On behalf of Pastor Bertle and Sister Arlene of Victory Outreach and our congregation, not only thank you for the invitation to do this, but thank you guys for all the work that you do. You guys do a lot of work in this city. I have known Ms. Mayor Go for many, many years now. I've seen the work that she's done, and all alongside of the rest of you that do so good work. Andre, we've done some things together in the community, so thank you so much for having us here. We count it a privilege. Let's go ahead and bow our heads as we pray. Father, we come before you in the name Christ's Son, your Jesus, your Son. And we thank you for all that you've done in this great city and for all that you are about to do within this great city. I pray for each and every person and household that calls Bakersfield their home, peace and prosperity, not only in the typical sense of those words, but peace and prosperity in their families, peace and prosperity in their health, wealth, and let love, peace, and joy fill their homes, businesses, and the streets of Bakersfield. For those are much more valuable than financial gain. And right now I ask that you be the heart, mind, and will of our mayor and city council as they make decisions that will better our city for us and for our children and our children's children. Lord, your word says in Proverbs 29 to pray for your city, for if your city prospers, we too will prosper. Thank you, Lord Jesus, for your mercy and grace over our lives, and continue to have grace and mercy on this beautiful city we all love and call home, Bakersfield. In Jesus' name, amen and amen. Thank you so much.
Amen.
Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Pastor, we received that peace and prosperity for our entire community. Thank you very much. You're welcome to leave at this point or stay and join us for the meeting. Same thing for the Bakersfield pageant. Thank you very much. Here are a few guidelines to help our meeting run smoothly. We request that you turn off your phones. Please be courteous in the use of cameras and videos. For safety reasons and as a courtesy to others, no signs are allowed in the council chamber or in the lobby. Everyone in attendance is expected to adhere to the rules of decorum established by resolution of the City Council. Failure to abide by the city's rules of decorum, including any disruptive behavior that interferes with our ability to have an orderly and efficient meeting, prevents the City Council from conducting the business of the city. Consider this a first warning to everyone in attendance that conduct that disrupts the meeting may result in your removal from the meeting and or the chambers being cleared. Behavior that disrupts the meeting includes repetitive statements, shouting, interrupting staff or presenters during the meeting, speaking out of turn, outbursts from the audience, and surpassing the 2-minute time limit. In keeping with the council's resolution, public statements are now received at different times depending on the item. I'll call on the city clerk to call for public statements at the appropriate time, so please listen carefully. If you wish to make a public statement, please fill out a public speaker card and place it in the tray on the counter next to the speaker's podium. We ask that you mark whether you're here to speak on an item listed on tonight's agenda or in a matter not on the agenda. Speakers who do not identify a specific agenda item will be presumed speakers for non-agenda agenda public statements. If you're here to speak on an item not listed on the meeting agenda, you will be called first to speak. Statements are given a 2-minute time limit, 20 minutes total for all non-agenda item public statements. If you're here to speak on an item listed on the agenda, I will call for you at a later time. If public statements become disruptive and I have to clear the chambers to regain order of the meeting, you'll be called in one at a time to provide your public statement when your item is called. Madam Clerk, do we have any public speakers regarding items not listed on the agenda?
Mayor Go, we've received 8 public speaker cards for items not listed on tonight's agenda. The first public speaker is Lisa Smith.
Staff, is there a staff member who can help her? Oh, you have it?
I don't know
You
how
have-
to zoom down on it. Oh, that's. We'll pretend. That's what we do in class when the technology doesn't work. We just.
Ms. Smith, can you talk into the mic, please? And if you need any help, is there a staff member who can just assist? Oh, okay, that would be it. Ms. Smith, go ahead.
So I wanted to come tonight to clear up some misconceptions from the last meeting and also to give you some background. 35 years ago, I was invited to volunteer as a residential advisor to the Planning Commission for the purpose of writing the Bakersfield Oil Code. For the next several years, I worked at Chain Younger for Robert Tafoya before he was a judge, and raised 2 children and worked on this community issue and began 16 years of excellent instruction at California's colleges and universities, resulting in an adopted oil code and 5 college degrees. As a result of that excellent education, I learned how to read a map, which is why I know that the county has no involvement in the TRIP areas annexed by the city. The gray areas here cutting through, the white is county and the gray is city. And these are the areas where we are having issues. The sheriff has no jurisdiction or responsibility for these lots and no reason to be involved in it. On December 22nd, 2023, I met with Gary Hallen, Greg Strakalus, Renee Williams, and 2 of your TRIP engineers about problems on those lots. That's how I know there are 14 of them in my neighborhood where they are and their potential for sale, and also that it will take 2 to 3 years from now for them to be sold. There are 14 here. There are at least 20 going between Stockdale north to Truxton. You're beginning the 7th movement, and you will have more. And then following is the 8th movement. So here we are with unhoused people camping and setting fires on the embankments, with children running up the embankments to play near the traffic lanes. Mr. Myers doing an amazing job catching up, addressing issues that are years old, trying to put together a safety plan and actually get people to patrol these lots. Because by the time this is over, I'm guessing you'll have about 60. I know that one of the largest lots
Ms.
costing...
Smith, you're...
I'm just reading my last sentence, can I?
Okay, yes, please go ahead.
I know that one of the largest lots causing most of the problems is being considered as a parking lot and would have a fence and a card lock. I wish you could have done that for our children as well as your vehicles.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
This is, anybody want a map? You don't need a map. Okay.
Next speaker, please.
Charlie
You're-
Fontefuerte.
Ms. Smith, you can just leave those in the box and we'll get those. Thank you. Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Charlie Vandervoort. I am the Executive Director for Be Finally Free. I would like to bring a matter to your attention. Be Finally Free has an ESG street outreach grant from the County of Kern, allowing us to engage with individuals experiencing homelessness, connect them to services, and provide support. However, when we attempt to refer individuals to the city's Burns Lane Navigation Center, we are consistently told we're consistently denied access. We are told that only Flood Ministries has a designated street outreach provider, can place people into shelter. Yet, when we reach out to Flood to be good community partners, we are often met with response that there are no beds available. During COVID, it made sense to centralize shelter referrals due to the public health restrictions. I knew that because I worked at Flood at the time. But those restrictions no longer exist. And it's time to ensure that all organizations, including Be Finally Free, can directly place people into shelter. We are here to collaborate and maximize the use of available resources, not to be turned away while people remain on the streets. I urge the city to reconsider these policies and remove unnecessary barriers so we can better serve those in need. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next speaker, Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you, Charlie, for being here, and thank you for your nonprofit's great work in the community. It's really appreciated by this council. I'm going to make a referral, ask Mr. Valdez, our Assistant City Manager, if you would connect and perhaps talk through some of these things as it relates to a referral system at BLNC. There's a thought that has been put into the referral system at BLNC and other considerations that we've taken in order to make it efficient and effective for all parties involved. And so, but certainly would like to work with all other agencies and nonprofits. So would love to see if Mr. Valdez could have that conversation with you outside of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you,
Madam
Councilmember.
Clerk, next speaker, please.
Anja Lauer.
Oh, sorry, Councilmember Arias.
Thank you, Mayor. I also wanted to thank Mr. Vandervoort for coming tonight and echo my colleagues' sentiments that we really appreciate all the great work that you and your organization are doing. But I just wanted to, I think this is a really important moment to clarify and share that, you know, the homelessness problem is unfortunately continuing to grow, not just in our city, but throughout, you know, the state and nationwide. It's unfortunate, but I think it's an important moment to underscore the importance of creating and building capacity and helping uplift local organizations, smaller nonprofits who are trying to get into the work. It should be part of our role and our responsibility, working in collaboration with the Homeless Collaborative and those organizations that have done this for decades, but to really help uplift organizations like Be Finally Free to be able to help do their part and help us solve the greater issue of homelessness. So again, just want to say thank you and hope that Mr. Valdez can work his magic to make sure that we're able to uplift you in the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Arias.
He's waiting for you right back there. So thank you. Next speaker, please.
Anja Lauer.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Dr. Antje Lauer. I'm a faculty member in the Department of Biology at CSUB, and I'm also a member of the Sierra Club. And I'm here to talk about the tree plan. So a while ago, the city of Bakersfield has published an official tree plan that should lead to the development of an urban forest, improving the tree canopy here in Bakersfield and also improving how we take care of our trees. So when my faculty colleagues and I, and also community members, were studying this tree plan, we realized that there were some key points missing and that the whole plan was more a vision or mission, but not really a plan that contains protocols and how to do things. So we also found a couple other flaws, and we developed an addendum that was officially accepted by the city council, that was accepted by Rick Anthony, and he said it will be on the website, will be published, but we have not seen it. So I wonder why that is. I'm a little confused. So when something is officially accepted, it should be also visible to the public. And we had a lot of signees on this addendum. We had a lot of people from the community and my faculty colleagues. They all asked me, what's going on? Is it now accepted or not? So and the faculty and community members, we also like to serve the city of Bakersfield. We like to help with our backgrounds. We have political science majors, we have scientists in biology and chemistry, so we can actually really help that this plan will turn into a success. So we really hope to see that that addendum will be officially adopted and that we can get to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lauer. Next speaker, please.
Sharon Brill.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Welcome. Welcome. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'd like to share my observations from the Tree Advisory Group TAG meeting that we had on February 10th. We had a diverse group of people, and they were all engaged. It was very exciting to see so many different backgrounds coming to the meeting. I think we had over 30 people. But I did have concerns after the meeting, and a part of what was discussed. There was a real lack of guidance coming from the addendum. You'll remember that you approved this addendum on November 20th, which outlines protections for our urban forest. And it was not referenced at all in the meeting. Additionally, when I checked the city website to see the summary of the agendas that were decided on the 20th, it was also lacking in that summary, which really made me feel very uncomfortable. The TAG is not a standing committee under the council's oversight, and there's no indication the meeting notes will be made public. For accountability, I really believe TAG has to be established as a formal city committee or within another committee that's already established. And lastly, I have a concern with a conflict of interest in the tree inventory process. The Parks and Recreation Director suggested that tree trimming vendors should be conducting the tree inventory. With a contract now over $1 million, this presents a clear conflict of interest. Many trees remain untrimmed, and allowing the vendor to assess his own work doesn't seem to be the right way to go. We have many volunteers, including myself, that is willing to learn how to become a tree evaluator and give feedback to TAG. So I thank you very much for your attention. I'm hoping that you're going to move forward in strengthening the TAG group.
Thank you, Ms. Burrow. Next speaker, please.
Eddie Lane.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
I'm a little shorter than Ms. Brill. I'm Eddie Lane from the Sierra Club. We've been here several times about these issues, and we've met personally with 2 or 3, 4 members of the council, maybe 5, about these issues. These are the tree issues. We've made recommendations again and again, we're really delighted at the leadership that Cal State took on November 20th when we came before you, and we were so pleased at the response that we got from this council, a very positive response. And I remember looking at the audience and said, will you stand up if you're ready to go to work? A lot of people stood up. So we're still ready to go to work. But something happened. We had a misstep. And when we went to that meeting talking about the formation of the Tree Advisory Committee, it was clear that it's to be a committee led by city staff. Well, we want to be a regular part of the city business as a direct connection with this elected officials. That's what we asked for. That's what our desire. And that was not the plan. When we got later we got what's called, I don't know if you've seen it, an interest form. And I could read it to you, but the committee is supposed to be chaired by the city's arborist. Well, no, the staff are supposed to support the community, not the other way around. So we're asking that we be formally incorporated as one of your committee members, and that the staff support us, and that all those folks who were here be allowed to work for you. That was our intent. And there's another problem too, and that's that we can talk a lot about these issues, but the rubber meets the road where it's really happening or not happening. Councilman Gonzalez is aware that a few weeks ago, magnolia trees were planted in this little median there on Baker Street. Well, magnolia trees, I'm not an expert, magnolia trees are not native. The California Native Plant Society has made that clear. So our groups Sierra Club, the Cal State, the foundation, the Native Plant Society. We're ready to go to work, but we need to be formally connected to the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Next speaker, please.
Empress Nancy Calelo.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
I am Empress Noentaziki Lelo, Zulu for Blessed Visionary. It is my great pleasure to come before you this evening and pay homage or appreciation to a consummate city council person, and that person is Andre Gonzalez, who has probably the most challenging ward in the city, but he has proven time and time again his hard work, his genuine, sincere efforts to uplift an area that has been so long neglected. He doesn't mind getting into the trenches and arm in arm with his constituents and working for that area. And I know he has, sometimes we have been kind of friction, but we've learned how to link arms and come together and work for a community that I grew up in, and I'm still living in that community. That's the Southeast, East and Southeast. And I am thankful for that. Last week, I'm just overwhelmed at how I was able to get a new roof on my home through this council person and Brand Construction. I'm not on Facebook right now, but I did do a review for Brand, and I wanted to come publicly and speak for my city council person who is really working hard, making a difference in an area that has been long disinvested. Him, along with new administration like my city manager, I can't even think of his name right now, but he's there, and his city staff, and how it's a new day. And you've heard me say that. It's a new day. It's not business as usual, and we're thankful for that. Thank you, City Councilman Andre Gonzalez.
Thank you, Councilmember Gonzalez.
Ms. Empress, thank you so much. That was such a surprise, and it warmed my heart. And it's not often that we get folks coming to the dais to give us a compliment. So I appreciate that. And honestly, I want to say, the work that is being done on the city side is really performed by all the hardworking men and women throughout the city. And I'm so proud of all of them and all the hard work that they've put in. So thank you so much for the compliment to me, but really I want to give it to all of the folks who are working at City Hall. And I also want to recognize you, because you've been a tremendous community leader for several years now, and really being a voice for the neighborhoods that have been long disinvested. And it means so much to me that we have people like you in our community. And I think we should all be thankful for it. And finally, you mentioned that sometimes there's disagreement and some friction. And I agree, but I think that's a good thing, because that means that we both want the best for the city, but we're coming at it from two different perspectives. I often think about something that one of my professors said was, thesis and antithesis leads to synthesis. And that by having different perspectives and by challenging one another and by having tough conversations, that we can actually move to something even greater. So thank you so much. It was really, really sweet of you to come today, and it means a lot to me. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Maria Polite.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you. I'm Maria Polite, and I'm here to speak about the trees. And I ran across an article in the Nature Conservancy magazine, and it talks about Louisville, Kentucky, where the cities and citizens got together and planted 8,000 mature trees. And the amazing result was improved health, fewer heart attacks, fewer strokes. So I went ahead and went to Office Max and had articles run off for each of you. It looks like this. I had them done in color because I thought it was really worth it. And I hope you'll be able to take the time to read it and get us going on this project. South Bakersfield is going to open up, and Southeast Bakersfield, and we can plant trees. I can plant a tree, and I can help. So thank you, and take the time to look through the article. Goodbye.
Thank you, Ms. Polite. Next speaker, please.
Robert Hooks.
Hi, my name is Robert Hooks. I was here for the last meeting and was speaking to the fact that I think the diversity of our population and our industry really allows us to set an example for the state and even the country and how we can all work together. And then one of the couple big issues these days with the farmers, right? The farmers lost money from the USDA funds that were frozen, and they recently had some climate data that was pulled down from websites that is essential for their planning. So I was really hoping that we can advocate and support them. On another topic, DEI. DEI has been subject to a lot of misinformation, disinformation, in my opinion. Diversity is all the ways that we differ, right? And inclusion is valuing those differences. And equality and equity is being equitable with people, right? Which is really a merit-based proposal, right, and process. And so you can see that there are literally major opportunities to implement DEI in a company, in a city council, or in a city and in the county that really support all the people without all the rhetoric that's going on these days. I still keep finishing early. So I like to throw in something for the trees too. I heard everything today and I think it's a good call.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have any other speakers in this category?
Mayor Go, that was our final speaker.
Thank you. And how about public statement requests for agenda?
No
items?
public speaker cards have been received for agenda items.
Thank you. Are you trying to? Councilmember Arias.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to respond to some of the speakers tonight, talking about some of the tree issues that we have in our city. I'm in full agreement with a lot of what's been said tonight, and I think the overarching message that I heard was that we really need all of us to come together to really drive this work forward. It's not just going to be, the council or just staff or our contractors or, our community activists and organized folks who have been helping push us along the way. It's really going to require all of us to, see this plan, become a reality for our city. So I just wanted to ask the city manager, we've talked about this a number of times. It's actually, for those who were not at our 3:30 meeting, we had a council referral priority list given to us by our city manager. And on that referral list is the item that I referred to, the Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods Committee, that we receive updates on this work. So I just wanted to give the city manager an opportunity to respond to some of those comments.
Mr. Clegg.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember and Mayor and Council. First, I would reflect, as Councilmember Arias noted, the Safe Neighborhoods Committee, that was a referral that was made before we had some adjustments to the committee names and committee scopes. And so in my conversations with Vice Mayor Kaur, I think her intent was that now the Housing and Community Development Committee would probably take up topics of the heat island effect, and we wanted to consider, the tree canopy as a major aspect of that. And so between the chair, yourself, chair as the Safe Neighborhoods Committee or the chair of the Housing and Community Development Committee, one of those two committees, I think, would be the place where this connection to council policymaking would be made. I would respectfully suggest that there's a lot of value to the advisory group being able to work, down into details of thoughts and ideas and, practices. whereas at the council committee level, that's where typically policy gets adopted. And so we do want to create that connection to a council committee where the work of the tree advisory group can come up to that committee to be reviewed, to be discussed, to be, to take policy action on. But with the, pretty full schedules that those committees keep, we would suggest that, regular intervals be updated to one of those two committees, but let the advisory group meet much more often and really get into the details and work out many of those topics. So it is in our work plan this year to have regular committee updates at the council level on policy issues related to the recommendations and suggestions coming out of the advisory group. I think it is also respectfully, again, valuable for council to consider, the role that council plays and sort of the parity that you have with other committees and commissions and the topics that you take up, and that there's a lot of details that's, that our good stakeholders want to talk about, and we appreciate the support, we appreciate the energy, we want to see many of those good things happen, but much of that work is happening at that staff level, especially some of the details of operations. And then shifting gears, I would also just reflect really quickly, because I want to be just transparent with everyone that my interpretation of the action that we took when we adopted the Parks Master Plan is that we included as an addendum or as like an attachment the recommendations or the information that was shared by our partners. I did not interpret that as the city council action approving and committing to doing all the things that were recommended. As to where that can be found, 100% we can make sure that that gets publicly viewed, put on our webpage. My assumption is that as an addendum to the Parks Master Plan, it will be visible anywhere we have a link to the Parks Master Plan. And again, really good information that we have to work through. But some of those budgetary decisions need to be made by the council year over year. The city council adopts the budget for how much we commit to implementing all of the thoughts and ideas. And then I would argue again, sort of at the operational level, very interested in the good feedback. And I've heard from Mr. Budak, who's been meeting with folks, that we're getting good ideas that we didn't have before. And that's wins. That's good. But also have to give opportunity for Mr. Budak, Mr. Anthony to determine how we can implement within the resources that we have and within the timelines that we have. And then we'll come back and share those with committee.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Clegg. I think that that's a fantastic solution for the benefit of the public. Each of our committees only meets once every other month and has many competing priority topics that we need to discuss. So whether that's in Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods or Housing and Community Development Committee, the message that I want to communicate to the group tonight and to the public is that the council wants to be involved, but maybe some of those finer details can be hashed out in the Tree Advisory Committee, and we will continue to remain engaged and ensure that we are implementing that plan. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Arias. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Appointments item 6A, one appointment at large to the Miscellaneous Civil Service Board to a term to expire December 31st, 2026 due to the resignation of Ronald Wolf. 2 applications for appointment have been received from Frankie Sutton and Ronald Wolf.
Thank you. The council will vote electronically, and then the city clerk will announce the results. Based on those results, the council will make the appropriate motion regarding the appointment.
Request to speak. Here's some requests to speak.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Just had a question regarding this item. So the staff description states that Mr. Ronald Wolf has resigned, but yet one of the applications is from Ronald Wolf. So can you help us understand what's happening here?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Gonzalez, Mayor and Council. Mr. Wolf had recently resigned to pursue another appointment on another civil service board. As that appointment didn't take place, I think now Mr. Wolf, and I don't mean to speak for him, but has submitted an application since his resignation to be considered again to be on the Civil Service Commission, the miscellaneous Civil Service Commission.
Okay, is that the protocol? I mean, does one have to resign from one commission to apply for another?
Madam City Attorney.
Mayor, Councilmember Gonzalez, yes. When you are a member of a commission, you cannot have any other position within the city. And I'm not sure whether this was actually a resignation in order to seek another appointment, or if it was a resignation in order to seek actual employment with, so the city manager is confirming that it was an appointment with another commission.
Right. I understand that you can't serve on more than one commission. My question is whether or not he had to resign prior to actually being appointed on that second commission.
He had to resign before he actually applied for it, yes.
He did, okay. Interesting. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Arias, no longer wanting to speak? I saw your name up there a minute ago. Go ahead.
If I could ask a question of our city manager, to refresh my memory, how many members of this committee are there, and what are the impacts if the council were to not make a decision and take action on one of the two candidates tonight?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Arias, Mayor and Council. There are 5 members of this commission. We currently have 4 other appointments filled. At times, this commission meets typically monthly. At times, we may have a commissioner who's not available to make that meeting, and so sometimes it could impact our quorum. But we've been able to, meet quorum in recent months with the 4 members, and so I don't think it's, critical that we move forward tonight.
Great, thank you.
Anything, do you want to make a comment on that? Okay, so right now we have the process. Unless somebody makes a comment related to that, you'll be casting your votes. Councilmember Bashir Tosh.
Can I make a motion to table this?
Councilmember, a motion to continue would be better if you're so interested.
Continue, please.
Yes.
You have a motion to continue. Please cast your votes.
Motion was approved with council members Kaur and Weir absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next item, please.
Eight appointments to the Keep Bakersfield Beautiful Committee. Number 1, Ward 2, regular and alternate members. Ward 3, regular member. Ward 5, regular and alternate members. Ward 6, regular and alternate members. Ward 5, and mayor's appointment, alternate member. Applications for appointment have been received from Vicheka Eck, Selena Pena, Sarah Houston, Matthew Martin, Jamie Little, and Frankie Sutton.
Thank you. So I will call on each council member for their nomination. Council Member Gonzalez for the nomination of Ward 2 regular and alternate.
It's my honor to nominate Ms. Sarah Houston as the Ward 2 appointee for the Keep Bakersfield Beautiful Committee. I currently don't have an alternate nominee at this time.
Thank you. Councilmember Coleman for Ward 5 regular and alternate.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to nominate Vicheka Eck as the regular appointee for the Keep Bakersfield Beautiful Committee. Ms. Eck grew up here in Bakersfield. She's graduated college here. She lived all of her life here. She's been very involved in various civic activities. And I think she's an exemplary example of a young person. So I'd like to nominate her as my regular appointee. And then I would like to also nominate Selena Pena as the alternate member. Ms. Pena also went to high school and college in Bakersfield, and currently works for Kern County Public Health. And so those are my two appointments.
Thank you, Councilmember Coleman. Councilmember Bashir Tosh.
I would like to nominate Matthew Martin as my regular and no alternate.
Thank you. And then at this time, I'm not appointing an alternate for the mayor's position. Do we have a motion on these nominations?
I'll make a motion on
Councilmember
the
Gonzalez.
nominations.
You have a motion? Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved with council members Kaur and Weir absent.
Thank you. And thank you to Ms. Houston, Eck, and Pena for your willingness to serve, and also to Mr. Martin. If you're here, would you all please stand up and we will recognize you. Thank you very much. And now, Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Consent calendar items 7A through 7I for approval.
Thank you. I have not received any requests for recusals or for items to be pulled. Councilmember Gonzalez, would you like to make a motion?
Motion to adopt the consent calendar.
You have a motion? Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved with council members Kaur and Weir absent.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Hearings item 9A, appeal hearing to consider traffic impact fees imposed on Planet Fitness located at 11425 Stockdale Highway at the Village at River Walks in Ward 5. The appellant's attorney requested continuance of the hearing due to medical reasons.
Thank you. As stated by Madam Clerk, the appellant's attorney requested the appeal hearing to be continued to a later date because of health reasons. Since this is not a traditional public hearing, we will simply continue the item to a later date. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Deferred business item 11A, continued discussion regarding amendment number 3 to agreement 2020-255 for the Hope to Home Down Payment Assistance Program.
Thank you. Please note that if you're here to speak on deferred business item 11A, the city clerk will call for public statements after staff's presentation. Each speaker is limited to a 2-minute time limit, and there's a 20-minute time limit per the report. City Manager Clegg.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This item was pulled and continued at the request of Councilmember Smith prior to clarify some of the methodology for establishing the amount or the threshold for first-time home buyer eligibility. As we went back with staff and clarified, there are HUD requirements that we establish a new price, and there's really only 2 options for that. And we appreciated an opportunity to really reflect on how do we create more housing stock that is at a lower price that can help our first-time home buyers. And it's not just that we should continue to raise prices of our program just because housing stock is increasing in median price, but can we create other housing options? And so we're working on that in many different aspects, but per the HUD requirements, we need to pick one of 2 options. We picked the option that had the lower of the 2 pricing options. One formula was just based on, basically, inflation indexes and CPI. The other is based off of median home price, and so we just picked the lower of the two that we think is most consistent with council direction and policy, but still consistent with the direction from HUD.
Thank you. Is there anything further, Mr. Clegg?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. We'll go to staff for any comment in action. Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the clarification and the work on that, and I would move for approval.
Thank you. I actually forgot to ask, do we have any public speakers? Madam Clerk?
No public speaker cards
Thank
have
you.
been received regarding this item.
Thank you. And now you have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion was approved with council members Core and Weir absent.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Council and mayor statements.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you. A couple things. One is I wanted to make a comment regarding the community members who spoke about our tree plan and the action steps as we move forward. From what I was hearing from the various different speakers is that there's a question about what really the role is of that advisory board and how it relates to the city council and communicates to the city council. I know that staff has an idea in mind of how that might work out, but it still remains unclear to many community members and, if I'm being honest, to myself as well. So I think what I'd like to do is make a referral that we work with that advisory board to answer that question first and foremost. What is the model here? How are we going to establish this group, and what model are we following, just so that we can better set expectations on how we're working together moving forward. And I'm hoping that we can address those things and maybe look at other cities and how they've modeled various different committees that are similar to this, and see how we can better work with them. Because I think it's clear from what I hear from my colleagues on the dais is that we share the same vision. We want to address the tree canopy in Bakersfield, and we want to continue to pursue that. But I think we need to work out a few things on what this actual advisory board will look like in the future. And then my second thing, I just wanted to note that last Wednesday at 9:54 in the morning, a young woman was crossing the street at Chester and 19th Street when she was hit by a vehicle. She did have the right-of-way in the crosswalk. And it was reported to me by various different community members that it was a homeless individual. That actually turned out not to be the case. It's actually a woman who I know, a friend of mine, who actually works in the downtown area and was walking to work. And I think two things I want to point out today. Number one is that, actually three things. Number one is, you can't always believe what you read on social media because the report that it was an unhoused woman was not true. Number two is, even if it was an unhoused person, what difference would that have made? It was still a person. It was still a person who was harmed and hit by a vehicle. And so I don't think that actually had any bearing on the actual situation. And it's sad when we have to qualify a person's housing status when incidents like this happen, somehow writing it off. It's still a very serious matter, regardless of the background, regardless of the housing status of the victim. And then finally, I wanted to point out that we still have a major issue with distracted drivers, with people who just aren't paying attention to the roadway. Just today, I was at the Valley Plaza and trying to cross the parking lot, and a car just kept going right in front of me, almost hit me. And the man and the woman in the car, they were looking at a phone. They were maybe watching TikTok, I don't know. But they weren't paying attention to the roadway, and they weren't paying attention to me. So thankfully I'm here tonight, but I am so fed up with all of the distracted driving in this city And I want to continue to press us and urge us to find the means and the resources to launch a distracted driving campaign throughout Greater Bakersfield. Thank you.
Councilmember Arias.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick comment and request of staff. As we continue to get new information and guidance from the federal government on some of the changes as it relates to grant funding, expenditures that have already been previously awarded and future phases of federal funding, I'm sure that staff is actively tracking many of those changes, and I would just ask that the city manager provide an update to this council, either by way of email or by presentation, so that we know what the potential fiscal impact that could create for us here at the City of Bakersfield. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other requests, and so we stand adjourned at 6. Councilmember Smith, where are we having issues with our system tonight? Okay. Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I was just wanting to follow up. We talked about the city council priority initiatives, and as Councilmember Gonzalez mentioned, traffic safety and multimodal is high on that list. And I had made a referral some time ago, and Councilmember Freeman also reinforced it on street widths, lane widths, the speed that we encourage by the environmental design of our streets, and taking a look at and changing our subdivision standards, which are the standards how those new streets get built. Also, involves the cost of maintaining them, the heat island effect. A lot of things are affected by that, and so I would ask that move forward on that referral and include all streets, and also we've approved higher density lot sizes, and I know it's a problem. I spoke with the development director and the residential streets, and we've got some standards for private streets out in West Main, and somehow those are not acceptable for public streets, and it seems like we can work. So I would ask that move forward. It has been talked about for quite some time. The other item was pedestrian, I believe it was a fatality on Union Avenue. And at last week's multimodal, we talked about press releases and how the conversation, so I'd like a copy of the police press release on that and kind of see how that looked. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other requests to speak? I see none here. And we stand adjourned at 6:11. Thank you all for participating.